Some new information in a story we've been following closely. The murder of a Florida State University law professor. Dan Markell was shot and killed in the driveway of his home in Tallahassee in the summer of 2014. More than 2 years later, prosecutors cut a deal with a known gang leader, Luis Rivera. Rivera confessed to supplying the gun, driving the car, and said his co-defendant in the case pulled the trigger, all while pointing authorities to a third suspect. In exchange for his information, Rivera will serve an additional 7 years in prison on top of a 12-year federal sentence served in an unrelated case.
Welcome to Crime Circus. I'm Baby Drip and I'm filling in for Drip Drop today. This is part 1 of a 2-part series. Make sure you're subscribed because part 2 is twice as nice as part 1. Now let's see what Tato has to say for himself.
All right, please be seated. Thank you everyone for your timeliness. We're ready to proceed with the testimony at this point.
The state calls Luis Rivera.
Luis Rivera, please. Mr. Rivera, if you could step up to the witness stand, please. Before you have a seat, we're going to swear you in, okay? Please raise your right hand, Stacy Clerk.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Please have a seat.
What is your name, sir?
Luis Rivera.
Do you go by any other names?
Tato.
Is that T-A-T-O?
Yes,
Tato?
ma'am.
Where are you from?
Miami.
Have you ever been convicted of a felony?
Yes.
How many?
10.
Are you currently incarcerated?
Yes, ma'am.
In federal prison?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you currently serving a sentence associated with the murder case that we're here about today?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're also serving a federal sentence for a RICO case unrelated to the murder?
Yes, ma'am.
What was your plea in reference to this murder case?
19 years.
19 years. And what did you have to do in exchange for the 19 years as
Cooperate.
Cooperate. What does that mean to you?
Say nothing but the truth.
Hold on one second.
Could the witness perhaps sit forward so we can hear him and also see him at the defense counsel table?
All right. You might need to adjust this chair a little bit so we can these up. All right? Okay, thank you.
Can you see?
Yeah, I see him now.
You may proceed.
All right, cooperate. What does it mean to you?
Tell.
Tell what you did?
Yeah. Snitch, I guess.
Snitch, okay. And has anybody told you what to say?
No, ma'am.
Have I told you what to say?
No, ma'am.
Am I giving you some kind of code signals of what to say?
Not at all, ma'am.
Has anybody ever done that for
Nope.
you? Your lawyer?
No, ma'am.
Law enforcement?
Nope.
All right. Your understanding of your deal was it was contingent upon you telling what happened in association with your role in this murder.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So you've got that going, that sentence. You've got the federal prison sentence going. And you also have pending a BOP case out in Miami. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's a up to 15-year penalty on that case, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Hold on
Have
a
you
second. Objection?
Objection, Your Honor, just for the use of the initials VOP. We would ask that it be explained what it is.
Okay, overruled.
Be handled on cross, Judge. And so that case, have you been promised anything in reference to that case?
No, ma'am.
All right, so that's just still out there.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, have you been promised any reduction or special treatment on your federal case in exchange for your cooperation in this
No, ma'am.
murder?
Nope.
Okay. And you've written some letters asking for reductions in sentence and that kind of thing. Have you been promised anything other than the 19 years in exchange for your cooperation?
No, ma'am.
Were you already serving the federal sentence when the cops first came to you to ask you about this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Is the facility that you're currently serving your sentence in, that's federal, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and at some point you'll leave the federal facility and go to a state facility to serve the remainder of your sentence?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, what are the conditions like in the federal facility that you're at right now?
What kind of conditions you talking about?
I mean, is it like a resort? Is it a nice place to live?
Not at all. It's prison.
Why not?
Same thing as regular prison. There's nothing sweet about feds or state. They're all the same.
All the same, meaning Not great.
Not great at all.
Okay. All right. This murder occurred back in July of 2014. I just want to sort of lay out the timeline a little bit with you. Do you know when you were arrested in the federal case?
2015.
All right. Does May of 15 sound right?
Yeah.
And when were you sentenced on the federal case? If you know?
12.5 years.
I know, but on what date did you enter the plea?
I don't remember.
Can't remember that. Okay. But you were definitely serving that sentence when law enforcement came to you to talk to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you agree that it took about 2 years for them to make this case against you?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
All right. And was Mr. Garcia arrested around the same time that you were for the murder case that we're here about today?
I think he got arrested before me.
Okay. Was it like years before you or like
Months.
days? Months?
About like a month or two, something like that.
Okay. Before you were taken into custody on the federal case, did you have employment, like legitimate employment?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
What was that employment?
I work construction in a masonry company.
Was it
15
always
years.
for the same masonry company or did you bounce around?
No, I worked there for 15 years straight.
I want to ask you about your membership in the gang, the Latin Kings. Are you a member or were you a member of the Latin Kings?
I was.
All right, and you're not now.
Oh, ma'am.
Why is that?
Because of the cooperation I'm doing today,
All
right now, this moment.
It's a violation of the agreement, basically the code of the Latin Kings to give testimony to help the state at all. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And has anything about your cooperation in this case altered your position in prison amongst the other inmates?
Yes, I go through a lot.
What is the situation in prison based on the fact that you're cooperating in this case?
People trying to hurt me.
Have people tried to kill you?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. This murder that we're here in court about today, did it have anything to do with your membership in the Latin Kings?
No, ma'am, not at all.
All right, but the Latin Kings don't care about that.
They don't care about that.
If you snitch, you're in trouble with them.
The rule is the rule.
Were you hired to participate in the murder of Dan Markel?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you paid to participate in the murder of Dan Markel?
Yes, ma'am.
Who hired you?
Sigfredo.
And who hired Sigfredo?
His wife, Katie.
Who paid you to participate in the murder of Dan Markel?
Sigfredo.
All right, and who gave him the money?
His wife, Katie.
Did you ever even know Dan Markel?
Not at all.
Never seen him in your life?
Never, ever.
Had you ever come to Tallahassee before you came here for this case?
No, ma'am.
You have anything against Dan Markel?
Not at all.
So your motive in this murder was completely financial.
Yes, ma'am.
Who was the first person who ever asked you to be involved in this murder?
Sigfredo.
Sigfredo Garcia?
Yes, ma'am.
Who set up this arrangement, this conspiracy to murder?
My understanding that I know was Katie was involved. She was the mastermind. She was the middle of it. She told him to come do a job, and he came and told me.
Did you have any understanding of why we were coming to Tallahassee to kill this guy?
Not at that moment.
Okay. But you knew it was a murder for hire.
Yes, ma'am.
And you knew someone above Katie the money was coming from somewhere above Katie.
Yes, ma'am.
How did you know Sigfredo Garcia?
Childhood friends. We grew up together.
All right, what about Catherine Magbanwa?
I met him through him.
You met her through him?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was their relationship?
They were husband and wife. They had kids together.
All right, and how long had Sigfredo Garcia been with Catherine Magbanwa?
Like 10 years, probably. Something like that.
All right, so a long time. And he was your best friend?
Yes, ma'am.
You referred to him as your brother?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you all hang out on a regular basis?
Every day.
Including often Catherine Magbanwa when they were together?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so you've been around her many, many times in your life.
Yeah, he worked for me.
And he worked with you at Coastal Masonry?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and did you and your child's mother, Jessica, hang out with Sigfredo Garcia and Catherine Magbanwa as couples?
I mean, once in a while, and I like that, but once in a while.
All right, were Jessica and Catherine Magbanwa friendly?
It was all right. We were friends.
at least at one time, they were friendly?
Yeah.
Who was paid, to your knowledge, who all was paid to participate in this murder?
It was all paid. It was me, Sigfredo. Katie got paid.
Who is the dentist?
I don't know him. I call him the dentist, but his name is Charlie, I guess.
But at the time of this murder, you just knew there was a dentist?
Yes, ma'am.
And who did you think the dentist was?
Was her boyfriend, Katie's boyfriend.
All right, and did you ever know Sigfredo Garcia to be in contact with the dentist?
Not that I know.
Did he have phone calls with the dentist?
No.
Text message with the dentist, to your knowledge?
No, ma'am.
You ever see him talking with the dentist?
No, ma'am.
All right, and you didn't know the dentist?
No, ma'am, not at all.
Never personally met him?
Never.
How did you know that the dentist was dating Catherine McVanois?
Sigfredo told me one day, and I had seen him with Sigfredo, but not really seen him like that, but we pulled up in a restaurant where they were eating, and he told me about the relationship that they had together.
To your knowledge, did Charlie Adelson have any affiliation with the Latin Kings?
No.
Did he have any friends or contacts in the Latin Kings that you knew of?
Not that I know of, but no.
And you were the boss of the Latin Kings in that area, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So Sigfredo Garcia knew who the dentist was?
I mean, he knew that they were dating.
Okay. He knew that we're saying wife, but were they legally married? Do you know?
Who was married?
Garcia and McVanois.
Oh, I don't know if they were legally married, but he always called it his wife, just like I called Jessica my wife, but we're not married, you know.
All right, so I'll refer to her as his wife. Did Sigfredo Garcia know that his wife was seeing a dentist?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he know the name of the dentist? To your knowledge?
No, that my knowledge, no, I don't.
All right, so did Sigfredo Garcia, when you were enlisted to come to Tallahassee to commit this murder, did he indicate to you that the dentist was behind this or that the dentist family was behind this, anything to that effect?
No.
What about this, something to do with a lady and her kids? Tell us about that.
Yes. All I knew that she was giving us the money. I called her the lady because I never knew her name.
But that lady turned out to be Wendy Adelson, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And your understanding of this murder was that ultimately what?
That she was going to pay.
That the money was coming through from her, or
Yes.
and that this murder was to help her in some way.
Yes, ma'am.
Help her how?
To get her kids back.
And did you ever know Garcia to have any contact with Wendy Adelson?
No, not to my knowledge.
So all the contact with any Adelson or dentist person happened through Catherine McVanois.
Yes, ma'am.
Objection, leaving.
Overruled.
Did Sigfredo Garcia have a beef with the dentist?
I mean, he didn't like them. They was together.
He didn't like him because he was dating his wife?
Yeah.
How much were you paid for your part in this murder?
They gave me $37,000.
All right. Do you see anyone in this courtroom that came to bring you the money?
Yes, ma'am.
Who came to bring you the money?
Katie.
All right. Please point that person out and describe what they're wearing.
She's right there in the middle between the two lawyers. She's waiting a tuxedo with a white undershirt.
Let the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant. All right. So Garcia is a lifelong friend of yours. Did you refer to each other as brothers?
Yes, ma'am.
And as a result of him coming to you, did you get a gun?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Did you get a gun knowing you were going to do a murder with it?
No, he's.
At that moment, no. I thought we was going to do a robbery until we came up with it.
All right. So initially, what was said to you by Garcia?
But
Or what you were going to do up here?
I was coming up here to do a robbery. When we got like halfway, that's when I found out about what was going to happen.
All right. So you knew you were coming to Tallahassee to do a job.
Yes, ma'am.
And as a result of that, you purchased a firearm.
Yes, ma'am.
Was that a legally purchased firearm?
No.
Not legally purchased.
It was dirty.
What does that mean? Where did you get it from?
Buy a gun in the corner in the streets.
All right. So you got a gun on the corner. And is that the gun that ends up being the murder weapon in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you have other guns before you bought that gun?
We had 2 guns.
You had guns, but you bought a gun specifically for this purpose.
Yes.
All right, that's what I was trying to get at. What kind of gun was it?
A 38.
Is that a revolver?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And did you know initially, like when you bought that gun, for example, that how much you were going to be paid for this job in Tallahassee?
When I was coming this way, yes.
When did you find out it was going to be $35,000 or $37,000?
Halfway this way, he said he's going to give me 35, and then he gave me extra. That's why I said 37.
Yeah. So initially, the deal was you were going to make 35, right?
35.
Okay, but you ended up getting an extra 2,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so when did you find out it was going to be 35,000? On the way up?
On the way up,
All right, tell us what Garcia told you on the way up.
taking the ride up, we was going to do a robbery, but coming halfway this way, he explained to me that was going to be a murder. But to get 2 kids back to the lady.
All right, and did you agree to do the murder, to participate in the murder?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you willing to be the shooter in the murder?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you the shooter in the murder?
No, ma'am.
And is that it just worked out that way, or is that something y'all decided?
It just worked out that way.
How did y'all know where to go and when to do it and who to kill?
Oh, he knew his way up here.
Who provided the information to you all as to who to kill?
To come up here,
Yeah.
Katie told Sigfredo the address, and we got up here. He had a piece of paper, so we came up here straight.
All right, so he had a piece of paper. Was that in the Prius?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he have the piece? I know you made 2 trips. The Prius was the one with the murder, right? And then there was a trip before that.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk for a second about the trip before that. Did you have the murder weapon both times?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have the paper both times?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and what was on the paper?
A picture of the dude.
Dan Markell.
Yes, a picture of him and an address.
Was the address the place that you ultimately ended up killing him?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Did you ever witness Sigfredo Garcia have a conversation with anyone about this murder or this case other than you and Catherine Magdanois?
No, just us 2. That's it.
Does Catherine Magdanois go by any nicknames?
We just call her Katie.
How tall are you, Mr. Rivera?
5'4".
What about Sigfredo Garcia? How tall is he?
Like 6'1".
So he's considerably taller than you are.
Yes, ma'am.
What was Sigfredo Garcia and Catherine Magdanois' relationship like?
They had a on and off relationship, just like regular couples. They argue, they had good and bad.
They fight, they break up, they get back together?
Yeah.
Okay. Was there one of them that wore the pants, that was in charge?
She wore the pants.
Was the purpose of the first trip to scope out the place, to do the murder, or something else?
To scope the place out.
Okay, and what did you do to scope the place out?
We sit near his house by a park for a little bit.
In whose house?
Marquez.
Markell's?
Markel.
Okay. And what did y'all do? Drive around the house?
I drove around the house first. We drove around it. We went around the block like twice, and then we sit by a park for a little bit, washed out, and then ended up renting a hotel, and then the next morning did the same thing, and then following him to see where he was going to.
If there had been an opportunity to kill Dan Markell on that first trip, would y'all have done it on the first trip?
Yes.
All right. And why were you not able to accomplish the murder on the first trip?
It was with the kids.
You didn't want to kill him with the kids in the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have cell phones in the car with you on the first trip?
Yes, ma'am.
Were either of you using drugs or alcohol during this first trip?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you estimate for the jury about how much time you spent watching the house or driving around the house, scoping it out? And I'm referring to the first trip.
I just spent like 2 nights.
So several hours, is it fair to say? Did you ever follow Mr. Markell anywhere other than just watching him around the house?
Yeah, I was following him.
Where'd you follow him to?
Followed him to a daycare. First trip, followed him to a daycare. And then when he got off the daycare, I lost him. So I ended up going back to that little place, a little park, waiting for him. Never showed up. Just following him around, but that's about it.
Is the reason why you didn't the killing didn't occur on the first trip because you kept losing him?
Yes.
All right, so let's go to the second trip then. And for the actual murder, did you have your phones working?
Yes, ma'am.
You never turned your phones off?
I turned them off. We turned them off a few times.
Okay. Did you turn them off for the actual murder?
Yes, they were off. At least they were off.
Say that again?
I think they were off.
I think they were off. Who knew that you all were coming on the murder trip?
Katie?
Only Katie?
Katie.
What did y'all do? Did you do any casing or scoping out of the house on
Yes.
that trip?
Yeah, I scoped him out that day I showed up here. I followed him. Finally, I followed him all the way to the daycare. And I finally got to follow him all the way to the gym.
Okay, but this is, when you followed him to the gym, that was right before he got killed, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. What about before that? Was there any scoping out that occurred? I think you mentioned earlier that somebody got out of the car at one point and went up to the house.
Oh, yeah. We
Can
ended up parking around the back of his house.
Okay.
And Secreto got off the car and went and looked through the window. But he was there. So
Who was there?
Marquette.
Okay, and isn't that a good thing?
It's a good thing, but we followed him from there. We just scoped out the place.
All right, so Garcia gets out, looks in the windows, and then y'all just continue to kind of scope out the place.
Yes, we went back around and I parked by the park.
Okay, at some point you follow him to the daycare. What happens at the daycare?
Oh, I sit there and wait for him to drop the kids off. When he dropped the kids off, I get back in the car and end up going. End up leaving there and we follow him to the gym.
So y'all wait out in the parking lot while he's in the gym?
Yes, ma'am.
What happens next?
He finished the gym and we followed him to the house. So when he gets to the house, he made it was a left turn. In one of the corners, I kept going and made another left. So when he made it into the garage, we pulled right behind him.
All right, so you're talking about on the way back to the house from the gym.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you ended up taking a different route, just a little block around to get to the house.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you were pulling up down the street toward the driveway, he was coming opposite direction. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so he pulls in the driveway first.
Yes.
Okay, and how close, when you say you pull in behind him, how close do you get?
Like 3 feet,
So right up to the bumper.
right up to the bumper.
All right, what happens next?
Garcia jumped out, went around the car to the driver's side, shot him.
Were there any words exchanged between Garcia and the victim? Is that a no?
That's a no. Sorry.
Do you know whether the victim's window was up or down?
I think it was up.
So he was shot seated in the driver's seat of his vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
What was his position in the vehicle? Was he in like a normal position behind the wheel?
Yeah.
Did you see him do anything, say anything, make any
He tried to put his
moves?
hands up.
Say that again?
See him trying to put his hands up.
You saw that. Okay. How many times was the gun fired?
Twice.
Both times by Garcia?
Yes, ma'am.
Were they just two separate gunshots or rapidly in succession? Meaning, was there time in between or were they right back to back?
Back to back.
Did you stop or get out to see if the
No.
hit had been successful?
No, not at all.
What did you do?
We ran back to the car, backed up, and left.
All right, I want to back you up and ask you about a few things that happened the second trip. You've talked about seeing the lady or seeing who you believed was Wendy Adelson. Can you tell the jury about that?
Well, the day before.
Day before the killing?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, tell us about that.
I was scoping the house. And I was scoping the house and we're leaving. She was walking the sidewalk with 2 kids.
And that was on the road where Markel lived?
Yes, ma'am.
All
A couple of houses down from his house.
Okay. And were you driving at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
What did the lady do when you saw her
She looked at the car and got on the phone right away. Get a phone call.
Okay. And how did you know that the lady, or why did you think that the lady was Wendy Abelson?
Just asked Garcia, why is she looking at the car like that? Hey, that's her. That's the lady.
Okay. So you believe that to be Wendy Abelson?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Was there an incident involving the gun being fired other than at Mr. Markel?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that on the second trip as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about that, please.
We was driving, Garcia had the gun out and just shot on the passenger side on the floor.
Intentionally?
Have to be, I don't know what he was doing, he just shot.
All right, so y'all are just riding down the road here in Tallahassee.
Yes. Just
And-
driving.
And
And
he
the gun
shoots
went
off.
off, I just looked like, what's going on? And he shot the gas line.
Okay. Was that an accident, or did he mean to do that?
It's an accident.
All right, so as a result of him shooting the floorboard, did that damage or interfere with your ability to drive a car?
Yes.
How so?
It hit the gas line and we ran out of gas right there and then.
What did y'all do about that?
We pushed the car to like a small little area. And some dudes helped us out, took him to like an auto zone, and he came back, jacked the car up, and put the hose line.
Were y'all able to fix the car?
Yes.
Do you have any experience fixing cars?
No, I mean I know about cars, but he fixed it.
Who? Sigfredo Garcia?
Fredo, yeah.
Does he have experience fixing cars?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, did he do a good job?
He did.
It ran after that? Made it all the way back to Miami in that car?
Yes, ma'am.
What about, did you have Instagram at the time this murder happened?
Yes.
And was there an issue with you posting something on Instagram?
Yes.
Was that the first trip or the second trip? If you remember.
I don't remember. But
All
I
right.
remember taking a picture and I had an issue with it.
All right, well, just tell us what you remember about it.
I took a picture of, I think it was a lion. And I remember Garcia getting a phone call. They tell me to take that down. That's too much evidence where we was at.
All right, say that again.
I remember Garcia telling me to take that picture down. That's too much evidence where we was at. Katie called Garcia and told him, hey, you need to take that picture down ASAP.
Okay. Why would it be a problem for you to be posting a picture from
So
Tallahassee?
we came out here to do a job.
Okay, so there could be data associated with where you took the picture.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and you said Katie called Garcia and told him to tell you to take the picture down?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, how do you know that Katie called Garcia?
Because we together all day. Like, we right next to each other. He said, hey, she said, take that down. You tripping.
Okay. Did you have any knowledge about the victim's plans, where he was going to be and when?
That day, I seen that lady walking. They said we got to get the job done because he was leaving on a trip.
Who was leaving on a trip?
Marquez, what's his name?
Dan Markel is the name of the
Dan
guy you
Markel.
killed.
Yeah, Dan Marquez. So he was leaving that Friday. I think it was going to be on a Friday. He was supposed to leave.
All right, so how did you know that Dan Markel was planning to leave town? That's really my question.
Garcia told me.
Garcia knew it?
Yes.
And do you know how Garcia knew it?
Katie told him.
How do you know that?
Because Katie told him, hey, you got to hurry up and do this because the man is leaving.
Did you hear that for yourself, or he told you that?
He told me that himself.
All right, after you kill Mr. Markel, and do y'all leave town right away?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, let's talk about what y'all did when you got back to Miami on the day of the murder. What did you do when you got back?
I got back. Well, I got back. I think went home, took a shower, we got dressed. We went out that night.
Went out and spent some money, didn't you?
We didn't get that money yet.
Okay. So y'all did what then? Just went to the local place?
Yeah, we went to a local bar, hang out.
Okay. And the money, I think I forgot to ask you about this. Did you have any money for the trips that was provided to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about that. Forgot to ask you about that.
Yeah, he had money. He had like at least like $5,000 in his pocket.
And was that the first trip or the second trip or both?
Both trips, he had money.
All right, and that was Sigfredo Garcia?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and did you know where that money came from?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did the money come from?
From the lady. From
Okay.
Katie.
Okay, so Katie provided the money for y'all to come do the trip?
Yes, ma'am.
Would y'all have had your own money to rent the car and buy gas and
No.
hotels, food?
No, ma'am.
All right, and y'all bought cocaine while you were here too, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And alcohol?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when you got back to Miami after the second trip where the murder was committed, did y'all have any of that money left that was provided for the trip?
I mean, we had a few more. We had some money left. 'Cause he gave me some money in my pocket to hold.
Do you know how much you got before, I guess, for either trip, for that purpose of the trip?
Second trip, he just gave me $300.
You said you got the money the next morning. How did y'all get together to exchange the money the next morning?
Well, that next morning I got up and I went to the barbershop. I get a phone call from Katie. She like, we're gonna come get this money. I said, Tudo, without Garcia. Where he's at? I said, I don't know, maybe in Shrimp's house. Some girl that he messed with.
Shrimp's one of his other girlfriends?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me back you up just a little bit. I should have asked you. The night before when y'all were out, was the defendant, Catherine Magdanoa, with you in Sigfredo?
No.
So you didn't see her that night at all?
Nope.
All right. And the next morning, y'all talk about it, and she says she's looking for Garcia.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you know how to find him?
Yes, ma'am.
And how was he to be found?
I had one of my friends go look for him in Miami Beach.
And that's where Shrimp lived?
Yes, ma'am.
And how did you know he was going to be at Shrimp's house?
My best friend. I knew everything about him. He was with her. He was staying with her.
You knew he'd be found there?
Yeah.
Okay, but he wasn't answering his phone.
At all.
Because he had dumped his phone, right?
Yes.
All right, and I should have asked you when we were talking about heading back after the murder, what happened with the murder weapon in this case?
We dumped it.
How did you dump it? Where did you dump it?
In the ocean.
All right, where in the ocean?
Like just driving back home, we just pulled over by a bridge and just threw it off.
Okay, and was it like an open ocean?
Yeah, open.
Okay. Was it, were there trees and bushes around as well?
Yeah, because he got off the car and threw it.
Okay, so like an overpass or a causeway.
Yeah, I know.
If you know, was the gun thrown into the body of water or into the shrubs and bushes nearby?
I was in the car. We got off the car. He went down. So there was some bushes, so he threw it to the water. That's what he told me. He said it hit the water. Don't worry about it.
He thought it did hit the water?
Yeah.
Okay. But did he have to jump into the bushes to make the throw?
Yeah.
So sort of off the
Right
guardrail?
Right under the bridge.
Okay. All right, let's talk about when you got paid. So you sent a friend to get Sigfredo Garcia. Where do y'all meet up?
Oh, we got paid?
Mm-hmm.
At my house.
All right, tell us what happened. You mentioned something about the barber shop. Tell us the whole
I was
story.
in a barber shop and Jessica called me. She said, they're here. Come to the house. So when I get there, Katie's in my house and Garcia's in my house.
And did you see what vehicle they arrived in?
It's like a SUV, a white SUV.
Okay, was that a car that you recognized?
Yeah.
Whose car was that?
Katie's.
All right, so they arrive in Katie's car, and Jessica calls you and says they're there.
Yes, ma'am.
And where are you?
I'm in the barber shop.
And how long does it take you to get there from the barber shop?
Like 5 minutes.
Okay, so that's right up the street.
Right down the corner, yeah.
Okay. What happens when you get to the house?
I get to the house and I see Garcia. I grab the bag, so I'm gonna get back in the car and left. I wasn't too long in the house.
All right, so you go in the house. Katie and Garcia are there. Is Jessica there?
Yeah, she's there too.
All right, and you get the money in what kind of packaging?
It's in a brown bag, like a small brown bag.
Okay, like a brown paper bag or a plastic?
No, paper bag.
Okay, did it have any other bags inside it?
No, I don't remember.
Okay, so you get the money. It's in some brown paper. And do you count it? Do you open it?
No,
Why not?
I didn't want Jessica to know what was going on. I just grabbed the bag, told her, "Here, let's go."
Because if she saw that money, she'd be wanting some of that money, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so when do you open the bag?
In the car.
When you're in the car, what car are you in? When you open the money?
My car.
All right, who's in the car with you?
Garcia.
All right, is that the old Mercedes?
Yes, ma'am.
What year Mercedes was that?
Like 87.
Okay, so you and Garcia get in the Mercedes. What does Catherine McVanoa do?
She was in my house.
She stayed in the house.
Because I had a newborn.
All right, so she was seeing the baby.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when you opened the money, how much money was in there?
35.
Okay, did you count it?
No, I trust him.
And when you say you trust him, you're talking about Garcia?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you mentioned that you got a little extra money. When was that done?
All right, think right there and then. He's like, "Here, take this." Right, or right when we went to the barbershop. He's like, take 2 more though. Do me a favor.
So when y'all left the house after getting paid, you went back to the barber shop?
Yes.
Okay, and that's when Garcia gave you some more money.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, tell us about the money once you opened it up. Was it packaged in an unusual way?
Yeah. I never seen money staple. All hundreds and they were all staple.
And this money was what denominations of bills? You know what I mean by that? Tens, 20s, hundreds?
Hundreds. All hundreds.
All hundreds stapled into how many hundreds together?
$1,000.
$1,000 stacks?
Yes.
And each stack stapled?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's a big kind of brick.
Something like that, yeah.
So you got 35 plus an additional 2,000. You know how much Sigfredo Garcia got?
My knowledge, I think he got like 40.
Okay, so he got 40 and gave you 2,000 of it?
Yeah.
All right, and what about Catherine McVanoa?
She got the rest.
And how much was the total for the job?
100.
$100,000?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you buy anything with your cut of the money?
Just a motorcycle.
What about Garcia? Did he buy something?
Yeah, motorcycle and like 2 cars.
Who is this in the photo, Mr. Rivera?
That's me, Jessica, Katie, and Garcia.
On the right, you?
Jessica, Katie, Garcia.
645, you recognize that photo?
Yes, ma'am.
Who's that?
Garcia, and me.
646, you recognize that?
Yes, ma'am.
What's that a photo of?
Two motorcycles and a car. That's the Monte Carlo Garcia's. That's his motorcycle, the black and yellow one. And the red one was a guy named Hibaro.
Okay, so was this motorcycle yours or Garcia's?
Garcia.
And was this a motorcycle that you bought with proceeds from the murder?
Yes, ma'am.
And this Monte Carlo, was that Garcia's as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that purchased with proceeds?
Yes, ma'am.
647. What's in this photo?
That's me and Garcia and our motorcycles.
Both motorcycles y'all bought with proceeds from this home.
Yes, ma'am.
You told us about the 86 Mercedes that you drove prior to the murder. What kind of vehicle did Garcia drive prior to the murder?
I don't think he had one at that time.
So no vehicle at all, and then 2 vehicles.
Yes.
All right. What about Catherine McVanoa? What did she spend her money on?
Don't know.
Did you have an opportunity to meet with Investigator Newland from my office and listen to some calls to see if you recognized the voices on the calls?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera, you testified that your motive for doing this was money. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You didn't have a beef with Dan Markell in any way?
Not at all. Nope.
Did you ever have any contact at all with Wendy Adelson prior to, I know when y'all were driving down the road one day, you thought you saw her on the road or on the sidewalk?
I never spoke to these people.
All right, no contact with Wendy Adelson,
No, ma'am.
Donna Adelson,
No, ma'am.
Harvey Adelson,
No, ma'am.
Charlie Adelson.
No, ma'am.
Nothing further.
All right, we're going to take a break now before the cross-examination.